This week's episode is brought to you by Tempest Tom, Eben Shepherd, Candace Crow, B, Mycena, and Spooky Kitty. Thank you, Tempest Tom, Eben Shepherd, Candace Crow, B, Mycena, and Spooky Kitty. It's with the generous support of listeners just like you that helps keep our Superspectrum detection cyber spectacle energy cores charged with enough psycho-spiritual energy to make the parasitic Archon rulers visible to our intrepid team of ontological infantry who are vigorously tracking them down so they may be shaved, sterilized, and destroyed. If you'd like to support our troops on the astral battlefield or just hear the second half of this episode, please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you the extended version of this episode, but all our episodes going back numerous years in a highly bingeable format, browsable right from within Spotify. But that's not all. I'll send you a 5x5 high-quality vinyl thought-reflecting sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art, and at no additional cost, you will be given instantaneous access to our super secret Discord server, where we continue our ongoing research into the field of ghost laser emission towers. This week's fuller than full-length episode was written and researched by none other than Tim Hacker of the Cryptic Chronicles podcast, available at crypticchronicles.com, and focuses on the controversial, mind-bending research of ufologist and author Mr. John Keel, most famous for introducing the world to the Mothman. In the first half of the episode, we discussed the strange worldview developed in John Keel's work, including the origin of the gods, 7-foot-tall UFOs, shapeshifters, ancient god kings, and alien encounters. In the extended version of the show, we discussed the strange features of the electromagnetic spectrum, nonlinear time, secret societies, cryptids, and of course, head on down to Point Pleasant, West Virginia to see both the notorious smiling man known as Indrid Cold and the red-eyed terror-inducing ultraterrestrial known as the Mothman. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the show. Why do moths fly into lights?
Why?
It beats walking. Why do moths like the light?
Why?
Because if they liked the dark, they'd be goths.
Oh, okay, that one's good.
Why did one moth kill the other moth?
Why?
It was a member of the mafia. What do you call a moth in a supermarket?
What?
I can't believe it's not butterfly.
Yo.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't get all belligerently intoxicated on the acrid vapor of our own smug, self-assured overconfidence about the nature of aliens, UFOs, men in black, and the red, glowing-eyed monster with gigantic metal wings that takes off vertically and has a proclivity for snooping on parked cars in the darkness whose windows are fogging with the dankness of teenage hanky-panky. Nay, we pull over to the side of the road to converse telepathically with the strangely charming man who just emerged from a hovering metal craft on the side of the road sporting an unsettlingly wide grin, because this week we're taking a deep dive into the paradigm-shattering work of ufologist John Keel and his accounts of Indrid Cold alongside a class of supernatural beings known as the Ultraterrestrials, the most famous of whom is none other than Mothman. I'm your host with the toast, Luke Madrid, also known as Hack Rabbit. This week I'm joined by the metaphysical marvel, Mari Sama.
Oh, woo. Hey, everyone.
The Mothman's mother's muse, Malachor 5.
Hey.
And the head-turning heartbeater, Heka Astra.
Hello.
This week's episode was researched and written by the tenaciously talented Tim Hacker of the incredibly awesome Cryptic Chronicles podcast, available at crypticchronicles.com. Thank you again, and welcome back to the show, Tim.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Every now and then, my eyeballs pop out of their sockets, light on fire, and burn a hole through the floor like two orbs of nanothermite, and thankfully, Tim Hacker swoops in to save the day by working furiously to prepare a new episode for us here at The Whole Rabbit. This is one such episode, and wouldn't you know, it's a bit of a follow-up to our ongoing discussion about UFOs, but from the perspective of the famous researcher, Mr. John Keel, who focuses on the interconnected web of strange activity which seems to accompany them, most well known of which is the mysterious Indrid Cold and, of course, Mothman.
Okay, so the first thing to get out of the way concerning John Keel is that the way that he looks at things is probably going to counter a lot of your own suspicions or beliefs about everything surrounding high strangeness, the paranormal, esoteric, or basically anything of that sort.
Good!
So if you're into ufology and assume these crafts are literal aliens from other planets, Keel is going to rub you the wrong way. If you are a spiritualist of some sort or believe in gods, the divine, or cult entities that fit into little boxes and have labels, then Keel is also going to rub you the wrong way. If you believe in ghosts and hauntings or anything along those lines, then Keel once again is probably going to rub you the wrong way.
So prepared to be keeled and rubbed wrongly.
Keelhauled?
Keelhauled. So there's basically no need to prove or disprove anything or speak out against it like, nuh-uh, or anything like that, because this is just one particular researcher's view of everything weird in the world. Still hold on to your own views, and don't think that Keel in any way delegitimizes your own perspectives whatsoever. But please, indulge us by putting all those already established views, ideas, or beliefs aside, and let's give John Keel the benefit of the doubt, taking him seriously enough to enjoy a good thought experiment.
Yeah, smug know-it-allers, know all the things.
Nuh-uh, actually.
Actually.
I like a good thought experiment.
So personally, John Keel is easily one of my favorite paranormal researchers out there, and his books are amazing, even to this very day, despite his prime being quite some time ago.
He is dead.
In all my years of exploring the weird and unexplained, no one has sparked my imagination as much as Keel has, and this is why he remains one of my favorite researchers ever, influencing a lot of the ideas that I personally actually entertain concerning the supernatural and just everything weird in the world. He brings a lot to the table, but what he is most well known for is a unifying theory concerning everything with high strangeness, which, like I said, really rubs some people the wrong way. We are open-minded, though, so it's not going to bother us. I just thought that a little heads up was due because I'm not trying to tell you to take what Keel says as the true way to view the paranormal.
John Keel is the true way to view the paranormal. There, I said it.
I'm already bothered.
However, Keel's views of the ultraterrestrials of the superspectrum are particularly fascinating.
Okay, but just what are these so-called ultraterrestrials anyway?
Well, before we get there, we have to start from the beginning, and the beginning is the start of history.
If you want to create an apple pie from scratch, first, you must create the whole universe.
Keel says that there is two histories. There's the mainstream one and then the hidden history. There seems to have always been something residing on this planet alongside humanity for the entirety of our existence. A presence, if you will. This presence has gone by many different names in many different cultures. Some have classified the presence as a psychological aspect of humans woven into the collective unconscious, with the presence existing in the subtle realms of mind, yet autonomous and nonetheless self-serving. The presence has been called gods, aliens, demons, angels, cryptids, monsters, and fairies. However, one of the most famous researchers of high strangeness that ever lived, John Keel, had a different name for the presence: ultraterrestrials.
So this term, ultraterrestrials, implies they're native to Earth? Well, extraterrestrials implies the opposite?
Yes.
Etymologically speaking, that makes total sense.
Keel says there are two histories of the Earth, like I said. The mainstream one that's taught in schools and colleges that's easy to digest and comforting to understand. It is a narrative that suits the human need to label everything and then put it in a little box. And then there is the real history, the forgotten history. The history that takes work and personal initiative to delve into and unravel the mysteries. You see, Keel understood that humanity knows nothing, and all our accumulated knowledge is a single drop of liquid in a vast ocean. He understood why humanity rejects this truth because most people hate thinking for themselves, and even more will always choose comfort over anything else. But the truth is far from comforting. Thus, humanity desperately grasps at our comforting narratives in a futile attempt to make sense of existence and give ourselves a delusionally ignorant and arrogant sense of control.
No, it's not true. Christopher Columbus found the hijacker's passport on top of the grassy knoll.
John Keel in his research eviscerates our modern sense of the world and leaves its desiccated husk of a corpse out in the wild to be a feast for crows. According to John Keel, whether it's the cult of scientism, the dogmatically religious, UFO cultists, or the woo-woo metaphysical subscribers out there in the world, all are only an interpretation of the ineffable. And when confronted with this truth, there are usually two types of responses from two different types of people. It is either cosmically horrifying or a deep relief. In many people, it was always a natural understanding. They didn't even know that they knew, being a subconscious understanding. And on the other side of the coin, it can disturb many people so deeply that it can even lead to violence.
Nothing makes me violent like gnomes and fairies.
Nobody gets more pissed as when their already set ideas and views of the world are challenged.
That's true.
And Keel is really good at doing that. And, there have always been strange objects in the sky of our little ball floating through the endless void. The earliest humans saw these strange objects in the sky. And so has every generation all the way up to the current supposedly modern and technologically advanced era that we reside in at the moment.
I've seen one. I've seen some weird things in the skies of the California desert for sure.
I'm very pissed off that I've never seen a UFO. Don't rub it in.
Same.
I've spoken about it before, but I saw one in a glass of water once. I was eating mushrooms. That did happen. But it was the only thing that was strange in the room, so I think it counts. But putting psychedelics aside, through our own research, we found your statement that these lights have always been in the sky, that we've always had strange visitors, to be absolutely true. Pretty much every culture on Earth has dutifully recorded mysterious lights in the sky that behave pretty much identically to the ones described in Congress by people like David Grush and Ryan Graves, etc. Check out our episode called The Ongoing UFO Invasion to hear about this in some depth.
So basically, ultraterrestrials being connected to UFOs in the sky is kind of saying that, like, these UFOs you see in the sky are maybe made here on Earth in the first place, and it's not from somewhere far away all the time. It could be any one of those options.
So as Keel's idea of the global historical narrative goes, when cavemen were making crude paintings on covered walls, and still discovering uses for fire, a species of intelligent beings already existed. There are giant mounds of Earth constructed by them all over the planet, as well as incredibly impressive megaliths. They created peculiar artifacts and scattered them all across every single continent, and they had the globe fully mapped and comprehended in every way. Then all of a sudden, this mysterious civilization vanished into thin air. Afterward, cavemen left their caverns and discovered what this mysterious civilization left behind, inheriting the earth and making myths and legends about all the fantastic discoveries they found scattered across the continents. And as time inexorably moved forward, primitive man discovered the existence of other beings who also seemed to inhabit the planet. The life forms humanity became aware of were nothing like themselves, with powers like invisibility and control over life and death itself. Human cultures would go on to create names for these life forms and even worship them. The manifestations from their invisible world were documented in the best way that human cultures could, and with their very own unique cultural filters and beliefs being thrown into the narratives. These stories became legends and myths that are the sole source of the earliest tales of the gods.
To riff on this idea for a minute, it reminds me of how Celtic culture had the Sidhe, or the inhabitants of the fairy world, who are also considered ancestral.
Yeah, and the Tuatha De Danann, I know exactly what you're talking about. Legends and myths would spawn from one another down the myriad branching tree that was a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, but all with unifying similarities. The builders, the ancient civilization that came before, were completely forgotten by humanity. Occultists would call the builders the Atlanteans, or some other such myth depending on the paradigm.
In terms of Atlanteans, when the Athenians went to Egypt and were being lectured by the priests there about their own history, they said that they should be proud of their ancestral lineage because they're the ones who defeated the Atlanteans. And then the Atlanteans were described as this aggressive, technologically advanced people, etc.
Yeah, so the evidence of the builders was suppressed or hidden. Most myths from human culture see themselves as the center of the universe. So there was little room for outside possibilities that they didn't understand. And this tradition continues even now, which has resulted in the current two histories I mentioned before. Modern scientists can't agree on just how old humankind really is. Every every year, the date changes, with most schools and colleges needing to catch up on the current ideas science throws out there. Over the decades, it's gone from 6,000 to 10,000 to 30,000 to 50,000 to 100,000 to most recently an astonishing 300,000 years old because of Homo sapien remains found in a cave in Morocco. And if you really think about it, 300,000 years is a massive amount of time. Think about it. We could have had our current civilization, which is allegedly only 6,000 years old, many, many times over in that amount of time. I'm talking like, let's do the math real quick. Like 50 or 60 of our civilizations could have come and gone in the amount of time that humans have been around. So with like pole shifts, climate change, and ice ages, all the evidence of what came before has been completely wiped out.
Well, 300,000 years is nothing to a elder dragon. Just saying.
Don't tell that to David Icke. Now, on the one hand, 300,000 years is not really that long. For instance, we're told the dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago. In terms of the lifespan of the dinosaurs themselves, we're closer now to the T-Rex in time than the first Stegosaurus was. On scales like this, humanity just showed up a blink of an eye ago. This makes all of recorded history sound only like it commenced the blink of an eye ago.
That's true, but in the context of how we perceive time, it's a long ass fucking time.
It really is.
Well, we could have had this civilization we have now like 60 times in that amount of time.
All of the civilizations that history has recorded, you mean? Like everything since... Yeah.
Since Sumeria. Like all of that from Sumeria to now could have happened 60 times in amount of how long humans have been around.
Maybe
And
even
then
69 times.
Yeah, and then you add on all of the pole shifts and the ice ages. Who knows how many times we've advanced to the point where we're like pretty sophisticated just to get knocked back down.
I mean, that's kind of comforting. It's nice to know that humans have survived numerous pole shifts, etc., numerous catastrophes, and we're still here playing video games and paying taxes.
Like Death Stranding is a game. Just play it. It talks about this.
Well, yeah, dude. I mean, when humanity gets wiped out in one of these cataclysms, the aliens just clone us and put us back.
Cool.
I'm just kidding. I just pulled that out of my ass.
You calling me a Xeno?
I was going to say some 40K references, but I should hold back. Okay, I'll continue. And remember, these are humans, mostly just like you and me. Same mind, same comprehension, same intelligence.
Same farts.
Indeed. But science says that 10,000 years ago, humanity was primitive. Then how did the Piri-Reis maps get made that perfectly chart Antarctica? Not just Antarctica, but Antarctica without ice on it. The continent had to have been charted before the last ice age, when it wasn't covered in ice, which was over 10,000 years ago. And I could go more into out-of-place artifacts that are evidence for the builders, but we're not here for that, are we? Let's just say the evidence for the builders is very real and credible, but suppressed and legitimately debunked. Believe them, you guys. To keep control over humanity's precious narratives that makes us feel comfortable and possess a delusional false sense of control and understanding.
We'll get the Tartarian jetpack someday. We're getting there.
Yeah, it's like putting blinders on a horse. You don't want to give away all of the story and the evidence that you've collected because, the population might not stay under your control.
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, the stuff that we research and the knowledge that we have, like 90% of people are not ready for this.
And that's why the space program is probably hiding all the weird stuff they find on the moon and the surface of Mars, because we're not ready to find out how long this game has been played.
However, highly unusual and significant events have always occurred to us, and we've done our best to document them, even back when we were in caves. These cave drawings show strange celestial phenomena and inhuman beings coming out of spheres, towering over humans. Ancient caverns in France have depicted dating back 10 to 30,000 years, showing fascinating visions of the surreal. They show oval disc-shaped objects in the sky. Some of them show these strange objects landing with tripods, keeping them vertical. This artistic documentation of the ineffable eerily resembles what we'd call flying saucers, UFOs, or the current fun description, UAPs.
You know what I like about that idea? Like, if you have an infant, your kid's like less than a year old, you can talk about sex and mass shootings and talk about whatever you want to them because they can't understand what you're saying. It's kind of the same thing with the UFOs and cavemen. To them, the sun is just as miraculous coming up each morning as the strange metal saucer that's coming to land and like check their butt temperature, every few months. They're just like, what is that? And then it's kind of like that with everything, though, when you're a caveman. So we wouldn't know. And then, if there is such thing as ancestral memory or all that information lives in our DNA somewhere, when we see those things, it's like we get a flashback to our collective childhood back when Klaxor would come and stick a thermometer in our bum to make sure that we were okay.
Yeah, I've thought about that. Like, how far back in Homo sapien time do you have to go? Like, how far back can we go and have a human who's equally as capable as I am? Like, I wonder, if caveman was truly Homo sapien, he should have the same ability as me, but for some reason, because of this idea of ancestral memory, like it's like that's all just like a whole other discussion, of course. But
I would say it's like instinct versus like learned intelligence. Because if you look at certain civilizations, the more civilized they become, the more technology they gain, the higher the IQ of the offspring, et cetera, et cetera. But when you find a civilization in decline, it shows that the brain matter actually shrinks as the technology is lost and the teachings go away and stuff like that. Like perhaps we have been fluctuating back and forth. Maybe it's a bumpy ride where we keep regressing and then coming back and regressing, which is what I kind of think is going on.
We talk about magic and meditating and time doesn't matter. Like, so does the mind of ancient Homo sapien still have that capability to break that limit and transcend their environment and essentially use magic to become God? That's the whole Gnostic idea. I wonder how far back we have to go, like, was everything just like brand new for caveman? Like, did they not know any better?
I mean,
or were there,
or maybe one of them like Gronk ate a mushroom once and then now he's the village leader.
It's something I wonder about and we'll never know.
I think it's just you remember what you need to survive. So ancient man probably was a lot closer with the cycles of nature. Their intuition was probably a bit more of a practical tool. And the ones who were doing the best with it were able to do things that today we would consider miraculous. I think in some ways they would probably surpass us. In other ways, they'd be like, woefully barbaric savages.
With super hearing and supervision for hunting. That we don't have now.
Now, don't think that Keel is going full alien extraterrestrial close encounter route. No, according to Keel, these are not Greys, Pleiadians, or anything like that, and they are not even UFOs as we'd normally label them. They are entities he calls the Ultraterrestrials. That are pushing down into our reality from a plane he calls the Superspectrum.
Now, jokes aside, this is what I more or less tend to believe is the case. Like, this is what's going on, I think.
Early Chinese civilization had tons of documentation concerning strange celestial phenomena, and they usually called these things dragons.
The earliest instance we could find was from Ken Shuo, a highly educated Chinese man from the medieval period who, in his dream pool essays, described them as flying pearls with doors. Basically UFOs.
In some cases, these sightings in the sky took the same route every year, year after year, century after century, and the descriptions can only seem technological to the modern mind. But even that isn't close to the truth, according to Keel. In ancient India, we have a plethora of surviving documentation concerning celestial phenomena as well. It is amazing that somehow these ancient tales survived the eons of time intact as much as they have, and they are probably globally the most intact and unchanged ancient tales of such events, which is why occultists like Helena Blavatsky and her Theosophical Society took such influence and, I guess, kind of jacked a lot of the mythology of ancient India. It is one of the most pure forms of human mythology that exists in the world from the beyond ancient past. These tales from India speak of flying Vimanas in the skies, whose sightings were commonplace back then. Vimanas could go invisible, move at incredible speeds, stop suddenly, and even manifest destruction with horrific weaponry. Vimanas were said to be fueled by tunes and rhythms, vibration, essentially, and in appearance, they look just like modern-day UFO sightings.
This is pretty compelling. Some of the photos I found online of Vimanas, man, those are UFOs.
Vimanas are described as flying houses, mansions, buildings or temples, some 7 stories high.
7 stories high!
But others just look like teardrops or like UFOs. Ideas like the Vimana and other stuff similar have led to a plethora of cult-like groups that manufacture narratives of lost Atlantis, alien contacts with humans bringing sacred knowledge, and other New Age type ideas, as Keel says. Subscribing to any of these paradigms automatically makes all others outside it false, which is idiotic.
That's why you gotta be like Shoko Asahara and combine them all into one, where you are the god of the whole story. Okay, I'm sorry.
I totally agree with Keel in that, though. Like, one of the things that didn't make any sense to me growing up when I was taught Christianity was that it is the true and only way and all that crap. When I was looking around, like I was really interested in studying other shit, I see all these other religions and views, and I'm just like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I'm not saying anything against religion or New Age stuff or other weird esoteric paradigms, don't get me wrong. This is Keel mostly saying this stuff, but overall, I do agree with him in an abstract way. When you subscribe to one of these paradigms, it closes you off from all others, and inherently, none of them are correct or true. So, as Keel says, and I agree, never let yourself get trapped in a single reality tunnel because it causes blindness and inhibits objectivity and analysis.
I agree pretty strongly. People are never going to figure out UFOs, God, or the supernatural in general until they soften up their hard beliefs significantly.
Yeah, when you're coming from a paradigm where it's like, I'm right, you're wrong, I have the true way, your way is false, like you're automatically just full of shit. Think of Robert Anton Wilson and the Discordians. There's a lot people can learn from them about reality, and Keel says as much in his research. Belief is essentially the enemy for more reasons than one that I'll get into in a bit. But belief influences the way the ultraterrestrials behave, essentially.
To take a quote from Robert Anton Wilson, I don't have any beliefs, but I have many suspicions. I think this would be a good way to summarize how the whole rabbit deals with, well, absolutely everything. We certainly suspect some things, but none of us are really obligated to believe any of these suspicions.
And that's why you have my loyalty.
Thank you, sir.
But it's apparent that like strange objects in the sky have basically always been a thing. And I know what you may be thinking. Were these objects in the sky the presence? Were they the builders? Was there an advanced human-like civilization that charted the planet the whole time it existed, being purposely aloof to the cavemen below, the future quote-unquote us? Were the cavemen and the builders both humans? Or could they have been different branches of humanity? Are they entirely separate beings? Or are these consistent sightings of strange activity in the skies throughout time the presence of the other? Keel's ultraterrestrials of the superspectrum. In any case, the higher culture, the superculture, the builders, either were wiped out in some calamity or purposely withdrew somehow from a way that interacted with normal human beings on the planet. Maybe they're inside the planet, who knows? The only evidence we have is the flimsy residue of the superculture upon the subculture during the temporary overlapping we must have had in prehistory.
We just killed them all by throwing rocks in their eyes?
Who knows? They just vanish. Or what if they're us?
No!
Or at least, like, we're the remnants of them. But Keel was actually against that notion. He considered them a whole separate thing.
We were probably born from their boogers.
Yeah, probably. But how he goes on about the superculture's disappearance reminds me of a Hollow Earth lore, Agartha, and whatnot, like all that kind of stuff. However, evidence shows that primitive man was heavily influenced by the superculture and heavily guided by it. There's also the evidence of members of the superculture coming to primitives to rule them as kings and god kings, giving rise to many ancient legends. But this doesn't elucidate the presence.
In the 20th century, scientists thought that some alien intelligence was trying to contact us because of radio waves reaching Earth from deep space. This notion was dismissed not long after because we discovered that radio waves rolling through space is a natural thing. We named them things like quasars and whatnot. Since the invention of the radio receiver, these types of signals have been documented repeatedly. Keel states that some of these signals seem like they are of intelligent design and that we cannot account for them or explain them, which is a notion dismissed by mainstream science.
Keel associates these mysterious, consistent radio signals that have always been going through Earth's atmosphere with the bizarre celestial phenomena that have always been going on in our skies. And he notes that some of these unexplainable signals actually seem to be coming from our planet itself, like the Earth is shooting out its own signals, or possibly something from within the Earth is sending out EM signals. The source and true nature of these waves universe is still a puzzle in present times, and there are actually a lot of scientific facts that, when broken down and looked at closely, are still pretty unexplainable, such as gravity. Even the very fabric of reality itself is just an illusion because there are no solids whatsoever. It isn't real. When you look closer and closer at matter, even a solid stone is not solid at all. So, as Keel says, there are no surfaces, there are no straight lines, and we don't know anything about the universe or outer space.
I wish we forced kids to play Kerbal Space Program in middle school science classes because just by goofing around, you quickly realize that everything on the galactic or space scale also moves in curves or circles. Although it does mystify flat earthers, you need to make a hard turn when entering space to even get into orbit, which itself is circular when we fly spacecraft, let's say to the moon or Mars. We're not really flying in a straight line. We're doing something closer to jumping off a merry-go-round, or stretching and spinning pizza dough above our heads until it's a bigger pizza and then leaping off of the crust. There's no straight lines anywhere. It's enchanting, really.
Just like we have constructed a false history of the human race, our science doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of understanding the nature of the universe, which is a notion that is wholly unwelcome to most people. Keel states, even our own planet is vastly unexplored despite modern concepts, and we have more knowledge of space than our own oceans. 4/5 of our planet remains uncharted, and countless islands exist that no person has ever stepped foot on. We are like children playing a game, pretending to be grown-ups. Not only this, but our ability to perceive the universe with our physical eyes is actually far more limited than we could ever imagine.
Imagine if you could see farts.
You can in the water.
I mentioned the presence earlier, and this presence is incredibly adept at mimicry, including mimicking humans. And this mimicry is actually very present in nature itself, such as a fish mimicking rocks, bugs and lizards mimicking leaves, predators mimicking prey, and so on and so forth. The animal world is filled with these cunning mimics. Keel states that humans have their own mimics as well.
Oh, you know me. You see my downstairs mix-up?
This is probably why even modern humans are so easily disturbed by the uncanny valley. We've also found that UFO sightings are followed up by visitations from the notorious Men in Black, who first appear like government agents, but then, upon further inspection, witnesses tend to relate there's something distinctly unhuman about them. And if you were hoping to read John Keel's Mothman prophecies and only hear about Mothman, you're not just gonna get Mothman, you're gonna get tons of stories about these, quote, Men in Black who exist in this weird uncanny valley. And sadly, this is what so many of the negative reviews on Amazon say about his book. It's just like, I just want to hear about Mothman. I don't want to hear about shape-shifting Men in Black. It's like, dude, that's the best part.
Not to mention Indrid Cold.
He's kind of one, but we'll get there.
This whole thing that Luke's bringing up about Uncanny Valley, I've brought it up in the past episodes, in some past episode, about why we're afraid of these things. I like this theory that we're afraid of things that look almost human because that thing might be an ancient hunter or, you know, some sort of gatherer of humans in the ancient past that in our DNA we either respect or fear, however you want to slice that pie. I think that's a very creepy idea, is that like somewhere buried in our DNA is this fear of a predator that's capable of mimicking a human. And that's what they use as a tactic to gather information or abduct us.
You pulled me up with your strong arms.
Or something, you know, like these Men in Black do in the modern day.
That's how they get the thermometer in our butts. That's how they get us to bend over.
It's almost like it's programmed into our DNA, this fear of the other.
Exactly.
Legends and lore from all human cultures and histories are filled to the brim with encounters with these mimics, such as encounters with gods, angels, demons, and aliens.
My favorite example, of course, is the shape-shifting yokai of Japanese culture.
Channelers and conjurers have documented countless meetings with these ultraterrestrials. He says that the UFO cult desperately want them to be aliens, but as the name of these beings Keel gives them states, the ultraterrestrials are very much from and still inhabit the Earth.
It's also not terribly uncommon that during an abduction or a communication between, quote, aliens and humans, that they announce at some point that they too are native to Earth.
Presence lives among us undetected and always has. Although to Keel, it seems like they do not quite live in the same frequency as humanity, but can cross over nonetheless. They exist naturally in something he calls the superspectrum.
The Superspectrum.
which is both inside the Earth on its surface, as well as the atmosphere of the planet and beyond. These ultra-terrestrials' appearances can be as different as there are stars in the sky, but they can appear to resemble normal human beings as well. However, they can also appear as mythical monsters, eldritch abominations, or hybrid creatures.
Those were not just ordinary people there.
There really is no limitation. Use your imagination. Moreover, activity of these parahumans is largely confined to specific areas of the planet. It seems that they have appeared and reappeared over centuries in specific locations. So, in a way, it seems like they have homes similar to humans, or at least territory that they like to stick to for unknown reasons. The activity of these ultra-terrestrials has made it seem like humanity has inherited a haunted planet. And indeed, this is the title of one of Keel's books, the first book I ever read by Keel, as a matter of fact. Myriad hauntings or encounters with gods, cryptids, ghosts, angels, and demons have been reported in these locations.
They're a very inclusive bunch, after all.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and also, yeah, he calls like hardcore UFO believers cultists throughout all of his books, which if offends you, sorry, but I find it kind of hilarious. Anyway, Keel states that to the UFO cultists, these areas are doorways or portals.
Something terrible is about to enter our world, and this building is obviously the door.
Where aliens come to our planet from the cosmic void because UFO sightings are consistent in locations ultra-terrestrials inhabit. Occultists state that these areas are portals where the veil is thin, and spiritual beings can cross over into our material dimension. Skinwalker Ranch is one of the most famous locations like this, where high strangeness is commonly reported, but these locations are actually all over the globe, with more well-known ones called the Vile Vortices. However, there are many more, such as the Bridgewater Triangle in southeastern Massachusetts of the United States, and countless other paranormal hotspots around the globe.
I feel like half the time I hear one of these stories, it's from Ohio. Ohio is like the goatsy of vile vortices.
Totally. On rare occasions, paranormal activity pops off in all these locations at the same time, which is when our world gets really weird, like now. But, all of a sudden, UFO sightings skyrocket, poltergeist reports become abundant, and sudden disappearances of both animals and human beings become commonplace. Mysterious fires break out basically all over and in the most bizarre ways. And even humanity itself seems to suffer a mass psychosis during these events. Fish rain from the sky, and mass formation psychosis seizes normal good people to commit horrible acts, such as the Salem witch trials. Statistically speaking, Keel says these high strangeness events seem to cluster around the 24th and 10th of the month, and mostly occur on Wednesdays. However, astrological alignments also seem to have some influence on the phenomena, and it really can't be ruled out. Multiple studies show that the majority of UFO sightings actually happen on Wednesdays, and other paranormal activity normally occurs around 3 a.m. But still, this is not a defined window. It's not like a black and white type of thing in the big picture. It could even be tied to the lunar cycle, which has led to people thinking that the moon causes psychosis in humans, like how it influences the tide. Humans are mostly water after all, so the theory is logical, yet there's no solid proof it's real other than individual experiences and word of mouth, such as trauma doctors or police that say shit gets wild when the moon is full. And since only certain people can see these events at certain times, most just shrug it off as madness, a wild imagination, or straight up lying.
This is all very Bloodborne, with the whole brain fluid consuming the parasites to hear the ocean in your mind, so you can talk to eldritch beings from space to transcend. It's pretty Bloodborne-esque. It's all about the moon. That game's crazy. We're gonna do an episode on it. I swear it's gonna be awesome. But this definitely is reminding me of Bloodborne.
My mission.
I'm gonna beat the game, I promise. Now, people more prone to witnessing these phenomena can allegedly tap into ESP, extrasensory perception. At the same time, those with little to no potential won't see anything during these events. So, this inequity in perception can logically make sense of the skepticism of those unable to see the ultra-terrestrials. Keel states that roughly only a third of the entire human race is able to tap into ESP. So, 2/3 of the human race would naturally dismiss high strangeness as rubbish, since they can't even witness it. However, this does not stop the ability of the presence to affect these people. It just means that they're visually incapable of comprehending it, unless the ultra-terrestrials go out of their way to show them. Just because you can't see the wind doesn't mean it doesn't have the ability to blow you off a bridge. And the gods could always make themselves known to anyone and everyone if they so desired. One of my favorite ways to describe this conundrum is how Peter Carroll describes the psychic sensor in Liber Null. Each of us has an internal sensor that protects our ego from events and happenings that do not fit with consensus reality. People tend to block out, or in my case, ignore and quickly forget strange things that they can't make logical sense of. In terms of neurobiology, it can be further argued that our brains are not so much concerned with receiving information as much as they are skillfully filtering it out, a process which occult practice and psychedelic drugs work by circumventing.
Paranormal manifestations follow a consistent cycle and wax and wane, but since only specific people can witness or become involved in these events, the logical thing to do from the mundane side of our global civilization is to ignore these events, since science is greatly controlled by vested interests and wealthy megacorporation benefactors seeking specific outcomes. The narrow window science is able to acceptably delve into is extremely limited and is more politics and popularity contests than actual science. Anyone who goes outside the acceptable paths in the established scientific community is burned at the stake as a witch.
Scientists who have revolutionized scientific paradigms are often laughed out of the room for many years before they are embraced.
Or put to death.
Usually their whole life is destroyed, and they're only recognized like 60 years later, such as the person who found the Dead Sea Scrolls, the guy who discovered that washing your hands before surgery made your patients live longer, as well as the guy who discovered that gravity makes the planets go around in the solar system. All these people, they were completely humiliated and lost their careers, and their lives were destroyed simply because they went outside of the box.
All the flat earthers right now are like, good! It's water up there, and I know because I don't know, okay? And the church told me 500, 600 years ago what the truth is. You damn hooligan, reprobate degenerates.
If you talk to flat earthers, they actually think that this current civilization cycle only started like 200 years ago, 300 years ago. It's pretty fucking weird. No lie, like I'm totally down to talk with them, and I have interesting conversations with them.
Why does the rocket turn? I don't know. If the rocket's supposed to go to space, why didn't it just go straight up? Why does it turn?
There are no straight lines. So as a species, we think we are so advanced and sophisticated. But think about this as a little thought experiment. In 100 years from now, humans are going to laugh at us. They're going to laugh at our science.
No!
They will. Think about 100 years ago from us. 100 years ago in the past. We laugh at their science.
Like they were touting like the world's greatest supercomputer, and it's like the size of the entire first floor of a building. It can do calculations in under 10 minutes. And you're like, look at your smartphone and it's like 1,000,000 times better than that thing.
Or like,
well, like a couple hundred years ago, they thought that drinking horse piss could cure plague.
Or that if your wife was acting funny, you just send her to the doctor and he dildos her until she's not hysterical anymore.
Female hysteria.
Yeah, or you just like carve out a chunk of her brain so she stops complaining all the time.
I don't give two fucks.
Yeah, that's a totally good treatment that works.
So you could see just from our own paradigm of looking in the past, we're hilarious. Our science is ridiculous. And that is exactly what they're going to say in 100 years. See, the thing about good science is science always proves itself wrong. That's how it continues and moves forward. Science is always proving itself wrong. That's why it's science.
This is why I laugh at people that follow science like a religion. They're like, trust the science, TM.
Stop it, please, I beg you!
Or like, you don't believe in science.
And also, if it can't be measured by the scientific method, guess what? It's not science.
Yeah.
Not only that, any honest scientist will tell you, the scientific method has its limits.
Don't you go talking about my dark energy and dark matter that way, just because it'll never be observed in a lab and only exists on paper. Don't talk like that, Tim. I know it's real because I can prove it mathematically. See how the giant wheel spins? There needs to be way more matter in that wheel for it to spin that way. And who are you to question my math?
We could unknowingly right now be living in a barbaric dark age. What do you think about that?
How about that one?
Agree.
So just right off the bat here, like with all the vested interests with who controls science and whatnot, humanity is kind of half crippled in its ability to explore existence. With this scientism and subsequent materialistic affliction, Keel says it's unlikely that these mysteries will ever be explored with real science until a future state, basically when we've progressed to the point where we're beyond our current paradigm.
Robert Anton Wilson likes to point out that reason is a cohort, and it's often bent to accommodate the dominant cultural's current belief system, only updating itself once that generation has died out and the old folks kick the bucket. Then it can like update and change. But do you notice how like if you talk to one of these AI programs, they pretty much are just summarizing Wikipedia. They're not allowed to tell you things that disrupt the current cultural milieu, which in my opinion makes the whole thing completely worthless.
Yeah, and if you look at history, it's always bullshit. Like as we move forward, like the narrative always changes.
So it's not as much about facts and logic as you'd think. A lot of what we call facts and logic is just reinforcing the norm, essentially.
Consensus reality.
Yeah, like if everybody agrees on this one thing, then we agree that that other guy that disagrees is wrong. I mean, you can disagree with flat earthers, but you still should respect, experimenting and looking into things,
Yeah,
for their
I
own.
appreciate them specifically because they do believe something that is true to me, and that is that the real world isn't real. I fully believe that. And I appreciate them for having the balls to say such like stupid shit, like with such confidence.
My thing is like, if you're going to go out and shut down people for being quote wrong unquote, that's to me not the real progression of science.
No, it's not. Science doesn't have to defend itself. Truth doesn't have to defend itself. If something can't be questioned, it's not true. Until then, it is up to people like us to explore all these mysteries because science ain't gonna touch it. Occultists and cunning folk, you know who cunning folk are?
Witches.
Yes, occultists and cunning folk of the past understood that bizarre magnetic anomalies emanate from the locations of these gateways, and planet Earth is covered in these vile vortices. High strangeness around these areas is commonplace, and a part of our modern folklore, such as the Bermuda Triangle, is very famous and well known. However, you could even have a magnetic anomaly under your own house. Have you ever seen a ghost, poltergeist activity, or a UFO in and or around your house?
No! No!
Then you probably are in the territory of some ultraterrestrials. These locations have been sacred places to our ancestors, with magnificent miracles and otherworldly activity happening in these locations, adding to humanity's mythology. Electromagnetic energy plays a key role in these paranormal manifestations.
Is it possible for a person to be a magnetic anomaly?
Yes.
I just attract shit. I think it just gets either more intense or normal. Like it's never not there for some reason. And since I've moved to a tiny little desert town in BC, I've had some weird stuff that's been happening.
Well, what's interesting about the weird stuff that's been happening to you, it's faithful to how it's been recorded in the past, which is it all clusters together. And the things that you're experiencing, when you consider that it all clusters together, is actually pretty normal. You have a whole variety of different things you've experienced. Let's talk first about that weird thing you saw when you were out for a walk.
Well, I got chased by some kind of dog creature, definitely too big to be a coyote. I've seen a lot of coyotes. It seemed bigger than a wolf as well. I'm going to try and like keep everything pretty brief, but it was nighttime and I was walking my dog. My dog's name is Heka, and Heka started running towards something. So I looked up. All I saw was a silhouette with pointy ears, and it was standing there for just a couple seconds, and then it started charging towards us, and I panicked and booked it back towards my RV. As I was turning the corner of my RV towards the door, I looked back over my shoulder because I thought for sure it would have caught up by now, and it was just like standing profile under the only street lamp that was there, and it looked really strange. It had like a striped tail that was thick like a fox's tail. It looked mostly wolf-like, except its head was really big, almost like a hybrid between a wolf and a bear. Like it was quite wide, and its head was black. And so it was just this really large dog-like creature, but the tail was so not dog-like and the face was so different that I don't know what it was. I definitely didn't imagine this because it did show up on the cameras. I'm still waiting for the park managers to give me the footage of it.
You said it had something like a lemur tail.
Yeah, it was like black and white striped, and it was thick like a fox's tail, and it had like a bit of a curl at the end. And I've never even seen a dog that has a tail like that. Not out like almost like a ring-tailed. It's very strange. And that same night, I had seen a UFO, which was blinking between white, red, and blue. It was moving really funny in the sky, and it would go to the left, which was eastward. Then it would drop down. It did a weird loop, and then it went back the way it came, which was west. So it was moving to the east, and then it went back towards the west and just disappeared behind the mountain. And I've seen a ton of planes. I've seen a lot of stars, and I've never seen anything that moved like that or changed colors like that. So, and that's not the only time I've seen a UFO since I've been here. I saw one just a few nights ago, and I was on the phone with Luke, and I showed Luke as best I could on the camera. It was there for a really long time. Same thing, it was blinking between white, red, and blue, and it did these like swaying kind of pendulum movements back and forth, and then it would be still for a really long time, then it would drop down or jerk to the side. Very like just weird movements. And I had another experience too where the very first one that like really freaked me out was actually I was trying to go to sleep and something heavy landed on the top of my RV and took 4 very human steps, like very human cadence, human kind of weight, like a heavy adult 4 steps. And then I heard nothing at all. So I don't know where it went. If it had jumped down, I would have heard it because I'm surrounded by gravel. I don't know where it went. So it was almost like it just flew back up the way it came, which reminds me a lot of this whole Mothman, Ultraterrestrials, Cryptids thing going on. And what I didn't know before moving here is this area is kind of known for cryptids. This is the Okanagan area of BC, and it's kind of known for like Sasquatch and UFOs. Okanagan Lake has Ogopogo, which is basically Canada's Loch Ness Monster.
Sounds super fun, though.
There's a ton of crazy shit in this area that I had no idea about before moving here.
And like those bodies of water connect to each other through subterranean
caves.
Yeah, which is really cool. So if there is some sort of strange life form in there, you could think about it moving between bodies of water undetected.
Yeah, there's a ton of completely unexplored subterranean caves that connect all these different bodies of water, like lakes between lakes, and like it's kind of a crazy area. But I guess that's kind of typical as well for hotspots, for there to be hotspots where a bunch of different things and entities and phenomena occur. Apparently, I live in one now.
That's awesome.
Now, assuming there are places that are vile vortices, entities that come through these locations have been seen as angels, gods, or some other spiritual being, which has often told the people they encountered to build churches or analogous places of worship, such as the Temple of Delphi in ancient Greece. But many ancient sages concluded that these beings were not human, or even human-like, but temporary manifestations of energy that mimicked the human form. The presence has always interacted with humanity in this manner. Occultists and cunning folk call this transmogrification. The ultraterrestrials can change from a wolf to a horse to a house or even a ship. They're literally unlimited in how they have manifested themselves over a millennium. They could appear as gods of myth or beggars draped in filthy rags. The ancient Hebrews took this transmogrification to heart in making cultural laws about how to act towards strangers, because you might just be interacting with an angel, not even know it, because they can look so mundane. We could say this is also true of Indian culture, who's supposed to treat all house guests, and even sometimes strangers, as a potential manifestation of the gods. But overall, these beings have a long history of playing games with humanity and manipulating us in various ways throughout history. There's no way to know if there is a shared intention or how independent these phenomena are, but many seem to interact with humans like they're a toy or a game. Worst of all, countless times these entities have been the source of war, tragedy, and disaster. Often they cause conflict among humans, maybe just for fun. Allegedly, seemingly. And these ultraterrestrials have been walking among us forever. You could say that our planet itself is haunted. Yet, on the flip side, some rumors also persist of the opposite, that UFOs and ultraterrestrials tend to discourage the killing of each other. In my opinion, this makes perfect sense, because on the one hand, well, they seem indifferent towards us, almost like we're plants or animals. They also don't want us to entirely kill each other. because it's likely that sort of plants and animals that we are the sorts that you would expect to find on a farm, and we're being harvested for some reason. But that's my own theorizing and belief getting into the picture. So what are these beings? What benefit would they have of farming us? Well, those who have suffered UFO abductions also suffer some symptoms of being exposed to specific vibrations of electromagnetic frequency. These radio waves can increase gamma globulin, or leukocytes of the blood. They affect the thyroid gland and create deviations in brain nerves. Different waves of the electromagnetic spectrum also create fatigue and mental fog, all common side effects of close encounters reported by abductees. Another odd similarity UFO activity has in common with monster sightings and occult entity manifestations from esoteric lore is the smell of rotten eggs. The old brimstone smell mentioned from Christian warnings of demons and whatnot. But these UFOs are not a thing, as a Boeing jet is a thing, but a transmogrification of energy from the ultraspectrum. Some people have pointed out that the sulfur, brimstone, or rotten egg smell, being emblematic of decay, may be an appropriate smell for entities that at first appear physical, but shortly disappear into thin air, perhaps indicative of a cheat code level of accelerated decomposition. Perhaps these beings rot instantly as a way of dematerializing. Keel says that one thing left out of a lot of UFO cultist lore is how, when actually interacting with these beings from the supposed crafts, they don't act like higher intelligence or an enlightened being from an advanced civilization. Many times, they show signs of the opposite. He says they purposefully leave these details out of their accounts and stories because they don't fall in with their narratives about enlightened beings here to save us from ourselves, and all that weak, cringe stuff of that variety. Belief, after all, is the enemy. 100 years from now, the UFO alien idea may fall out of favor, but the lights in the sky, the abductions, and bizarre humanoids will remain, as they always have, just in a new form to suit the current state of human civilization. Humming and buzzing sounds commonly coincide with UFO sightings, which also occur in the human brain when exposed to radar waves consistently. Although Heka Aster didn't mention it, strange sounds have also accompanied the strange phenomena she's been witnessing lately.
Yeah, there's been some weird sounds. There was something the other night that was like growling mixed in with some kind of mechanical sound. I have no idea how to describe it.
It's remarkably common to hear that same thing in accounts of Bigfoot, so there you go. UFO abductees and close encounter witnesses share many characteristics of those who have suffered prolonged exposure to the electromagnetic spectrum. Research has concluded that certain waves from the electromagnetic spectrum do affect the human nervous system. Certain frequencies can even make neurotoxins inert, such as a cobra bite. How these frequencies interact with the metals of Earth is even more perplexing, such as gold, a metal ancient alien enthusiasts have been stating that aliens were after in humanity's ancient past. It seems worth mentioning that quite a few UFO sightings do tend to cluster around either secret weapons bases or natural uranium deposits. Many abductees are probably offended by being told it's all in your head, but reality isn't as real as we think it is in the first place. The closer you look at matter with modern science, the less dense things become. There are no solids in nature, just different degrees of density of ever-moving waves. And in neuroscience, literally nothing exists outside the mind anyway. Everything everyone has ever seen is just a crude copy and paste job that manifests as a hallucination in the mind. So, the mind is never separate from reality, because everything that has ever happened to us, you could argue, took place only in our own minds. As we love to remind people, occult author Lamau Duquette has famously said, "It's all in your head, you just have no idea how big your head is." Moses attached a bronze snake to a staff and used it to cure people suffering from snake bites during the Hebrew time in exile. This is after he was instructed to do so by God. Moses was commanded to make the Ark of the Covenant, demanding precious metals, especially gold, from all his people, and the Ark turned out to be the ancient equivalent of a nuke to the enemies of the Israelites. So, the Ultraterrestrials can utilize metals along with the electromagnetic spectrum to gift the Hebrews with pretty overpowered tools, if you will. And to be fair, the Ark of the Covenant is pretty weird. Dr. Meade Lean and other early UFO investigators observed that UFOs almost always appeared magically as a reddish puddle in the sky. Then it changed to other colors of the spectrum until ending in purple and melted away into ultraviolet. These unexplainable aerial phenomena usually only manifest for a few seconds, which trips out anyone who manages to spot these manifestations. But again, even then, only people with ESP abilities would be able to spot them as well, making, well, the viewer a bit less credible. Keel states that black books of witchcraft, occult grimoires, and other sorts of magic traditions explain the forbidden practice of conjuring ultraterrestrials. This materialization process has been documented by countless occultists over the millennia, says Keel, with solemn warnings to avert their eyes, be it angel, demon, god, or elemental. Or it could cause conjunctivitis and other painful maladies that occur from direct exposure to various levels of the electromagnetic spectrum, also
So-
touching poo-poo to your eye.
Pink eye?
Yes. This is also true in Japanese folklore. Coming into contact with flying orbs can be dangerous and are often accompanied by symptoms we know today as radiation sickness. Basically, all mythology states you should not look at the splendor of a materialized god. But don't tell that to Donald Trump.
Dominion.
Though the ancients used different terminology like rays and vibrations, they knew that the phantom inhabitants of the earth manifested by altering frequencies. The secret cults understood that the earth was constantly being bathed and waved from outer space, which coincides with astrology, and these rays absolutely affect biological organisms. The rays fluctuate in intensity depending on what time of year it is, and these cosmic rays are directly linked to the superspectrum. Abductees have had bizarre sexual experiences aboard UFOs. Isn't that fun?
Tell me what's next, alien sex.
They've been reported to have pleasant experiences, but also horrifying ones where they're forced to have the non-consensual sex, sometimes even with monstrous-looking ETs. It's just Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby. However, sometimes their eggs or sex fluids are merely harvested, leaving its victim to recount the event as impersonal and mechanical. Also like Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby. In any case, it seems like the ultraterrestrials have had a fascination with human reproduction, a fact that also falls in line with the mythology of ancient god kings. Of course, this is also true of fairy lore. Oftentimes, in fairy lore, the visitors from the other world want to swap places with humans and abduct humans of their own, in theory, to enhance their own genetics in the exchange, sometimes going as far as stealing babies from their cribs.
God kings among humankind.
Myths and legends of god kings dwelling upon the earth with mortals are a cascading litany of tales throughout the millennia. Many ancient alien fanatics claimed the god kings bred with humanity to create hybrids, and this coincides with the UFO lore about harvesting the seed of humanity and experimenting with human sexuality. The ultraterrestrials are also ultra horny, apparently.
Brown chicken, brown cow.
Think about the tales of the Nephilim from the books of Enoch, or all the tales of demigods from the ancient world. The Greys, the Reptilians, the Mantids. It is Mantids, right?
Yes.
Interchangeable.
Man tits. We have tits now.
Mantits. Got it. Okay. UFO communities have tied these tales of beings coming from another world to modern UFO abductions. Would the hybridization be energetic, spiritual, or physical? Or perhaps a mix of all three? Could the ultraterrestrials been trying to perfect a hybrid creature in ancient times as well as modern UFO abductions? Who the hell knows?
Of course!
I guess it's kind of like how we're constantly breeding animals and plants to benefit us. It might be the same thing where they just keep checking up on us and tweaking us ever so slightly over the eons.
We want chickens with big breasts, right? And they want humans with big fat bootsies. Am I making sense?
Yeah, we're just Cornish cross chickens, is what you're saying.
Kind of. But for them to stick their alien pieces into, like blow-up dolls that talk and
getting
program
spicy in here.
computers and cause wars with each other. That's why they call it blowing each other up, because that's what we are.
The influence of ancient myths of god kings that directly ruled over humans for some time in our past have become more and more subtle as technology progresses. According to many beyond ancient Asian cultures, the first emperors were god kings that came down from heaven to rule them. They took over their kingdoms incredibly easily because they casually displayed superhuman abilities. It didn't take long before they were straight up worshipped. Between 5000 and 1000 BC, there was a global invasion of these god kings coming down to rule over ancient human civilizations. You look at ancient history and the mythological lore originating from these cultures of those times, and we got the Neteru, Olympians, Anunnaki, Elohim, the Devas, the Devi, Ishvara, Ishvari, Bhagavan, and Bhagavati, Aesir, Vanir. The list goes on and on. All these tales of godlike beings descending from on high to rule over entire civilizations, and they were taller, more muscular, and just superior to normal humans in all ways, with an otherworldly radiance coming from them, insinuating that they were divine. They performed miracles, slayed powerful beasts, and displayed a level of intellect that surpassed anyone and everyone.
One exciting portrayal would be the engineers of the Alien franchise, with Prometheus coming to my mind first.
Yep, I think that's that's what Ridley Scott was implying.
It was. In his notes, it was like, oh man, and Jesus was an engineer. And like that was what he was thinking and what he was trying to portray in the film, and it just kind of got like buried.
I think he just bit out.
Yeah, he didn't want to tell everyone what their secret religion was.
Sometimes the entities were animal-human hybrids, such as the Apkallu or the Oanus, alien entities from the sea who taught Sumerians everything about civilization. The native Australians had paintings in caves of tall-robed beings thought to be sacred and the source of much of their understanding concerning nature and the universe. Moses, who received orders from the entity that resided in a glowing cloud above the mountain, is thrown in as an extraterrestrial.
No!
A legend of the Hopi Native Americans concerns the Kachina clan, a group of non-human beings sent to give help and guidance to the tribe. These ultraterrestrials taught the Hopi occult secrets, similar to the occult traditions found in Europe. They even led the Hopi from the south into modern-day America to settle there for unknown reasons. But then, one day, the Kachina clan told the Hopi that they must depart. According to the legend, they said some bizarre shit too, just before leaving.
I want to know.
Quote, "It is not time for us to leave and go to our distant planets and stars, but it is time for us to leave you. We will go by our powers to a certain high mountain, which you will know, where we will await your messages of need. We are a spirit people, and we will not be seen again by you or your people, but you must remember us by wearing our masks and our customs at the proper ceremonial time. Those who do so must be only those persons who have acquired the knowledge and the wisdom we have taught you."
We've discussed the Kachina quite a bit during our episodes about clowns from a while back.
Yeah, there's a cool connection between clowns and Nephilim as well.
And if you look here to the Kachina, it's right in your face. These sort of sacred clowns are seen as the progenitor of mankind. And of course, this is reflected in the tarot as the Fool being the first card from which the whole story emerges.
The natives in the Americas, Africa, and the Pacific all adopted ceremonial garb of the ultraterrestrials, according to John Keel at least, just like the early church adopted the robes of the angels that visited them with divine messages. Humanity has always strived to imitate the manifestations of the ultraterrestrials from the superspectrum. Traditionally, only witch doctors, medicine men, or those versed in the arcane nature of elementals and the hidden secrets of nature were allowed to don these garbs. The presence dictated the ceremonies and rites that would thrive in human cultures throughout our entire history. We have always tried to imitate them with not only masks and garbs, but intentional physical deformity as well, such as purposely elongated skulls of young ones or intricate tattoos. For untold millennia, the human race has danced to the fiddler's tune of the ultraterrestrials. Then, of course, there are the ancient myths of the god kings mating with mortal human women. According to these legends that we are all familiar with, the offspring of this was the Blue Bloods, who, in the ancient past, literally had blue blood. Even today, many once royal families have issues with blood coagulation, and this could be a side effect of their ancient ultraterrestrial heritage.
Or inbreeding.
Yeah. The god kings divided up the world among themselves, and their blue blood descendants inherited their realms. The ultraterrestrial god kings also established religious establishments and traditions which shaped cultures for countless generations. Indeed, they could be responsible for all religions and esoteric societies, always appearing in ways that best suit their ends, or just how they may feel like manifesting at the time. Or who knows? Because no one knows their true intentions or motives, and there seems to be just as many contradictions and opposing factions within the ultraterrestrials as there are different types of pebbles of sand at the beach. And since we're covering John Keel, then let's take John Keel seriously, shall we? Just what the fuck could these things possibly want? Like the Rabbit King said, are we just a farm? Are they just harvesting us somehow? What the hell? This is like really archonic, right?
I'm definitely leaving that question open to more investigation. I think it's awfully telling that the people in positions of power that claim to know the truth about UFOs and aliens oftentimes finish up their information with, well, you don't want to know the truth. It's too spooky for the general public to know. And that leads me to believe
point that this is a farm.
Well, could we even be able to understand the truth, even if we were accessible to it? Could we even comprehend it?
Yes, we are corn.
They imitate humans, right? And, we began imitating them, but to what end? There's no logic to it. Do they need us? Do they not need us? Are we just a toy? Are we a game? It suggests like a darker, almost eldritch horror nature to the Ultraterrestrials.
We're just NPCs in the video game they built for their own entertainment, perhaps.
Huh, exactly. And I don't think that a lot of people would be like appreciative of that idea and even violent against it in some cases. Like, what do you think? How do you think the mainstream would react if I said something like that to them?
Well, they'd probably ramble on about Jesus Christ or the Ashtar Command or something of that. And there's not much in our paradigms that accommodate this idea except that, oh, they're demons. But if we look to Islamic mythology, you've got the jinn, who are the first inhabitants of Earth. They're made of smokeless fire. They're possessed of all these special abilities, and about half of them are considered evil because they refuse to bow to humans because it was their planet. So by strict interpretation of these terms, you could call the jinn ultra-terrestrials.
Yeah, true that. I think that the idea that humanity is essentially androids is kind of horrifying because we have this ego of like self-importance. But at the same time, I'm not going all in or folding because I don't know what the fuck and about anything. It's just that usually the truth isn't what we want to hear. And, if you look at the ancient stories, analogous to these ultra-terrestrial tales, they don't get along with each other as well. And according to Keel and mythology, there was always conflict and schisms among the gods. The tales show they are often in conflict and disagree with one another. In fact, like you look at Enlil and Enki, they're brothers and they're always at each other as rivals. In fact, it's also like myriad wars and human bloodshed have gone down because of these types of disagreements. We don't know how many ultra-terrestrials there are, too. There could be millions or billions, maybe even just a handful. Who knows? All I know is that they all want different stuff and do different shit. The nature of the entities is so ineffable that there is really nothing reliable to lean on, I guess, when trying to figure out their motives or goals concerning the relationship with humanity. However, it seems like some have actually done some good. Like everything, there's dark sides and light sides to things, Contrast is existence. There are no absolutes. Around the world, some pretty legendary spiritual paradigms all formed around the same time in history. Buddha discovered enlightenment underneath his tree. Lao Tzu cultivated and then later spread the teachings of the Tao Te Ching. Confucianism, too, came about around this era. Zoroaster in Persia was contacted by divine entities that led to the establishment of Zoroastrianism. And Zoroastrianism in particular, this religion had profound influence over all others to come, including Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. All of them have influence from Zoroastrianism. Zechariah and Daniel from the Bible were communicating with non-human entities that forever altered the destiny of their tribes. Many spiritual paradigms have had profoundly positive influences over humanity. So it's kind of difficult to go full dark side when looking at the actions of the ultra-terrestrials. None of these men knew anything about any of the others or that they even existed, but all around the same time, they were being given downloads or direct interactions with the presence. These paradigms and teachings would spread globally and in a lot of ways overlap. The Golden Rule, for example, is found in all these teachings. But all these men from between 600 to 500 BC would change the entire philosophical and spiritual culture spanning the entire globe. They changed the entire paradigm of humanity. So the century is one of the most important in all of human history concerning religion. The people who, got these downloads that changed the world, they were affected by divine touch, you could say. It's hard to try and define it in the way we're talking about things right now. But so the ultra-terrestrials, they aren't all bad, is my point. But nothing is exempt from entropy, it seems. It could be other ultra-terrestrials dabbled in tinkering with the minds of men and women, and much was corrupted or misused. But there is no denying the positive aspects that came with these paradigm shifts. My point is just that you can't label the presence as bad or good wholly, but mankind seems like only a small part of a much bigger pattern, and we could just be an extension of something, some distant unknown alien intelligence. Keel hints that there is a cosmic intelligence separate from the ultra-terrestrials that has also played a part in influencing human affairs on Earth. So it's all confusing, and even Keel doesn't claim to have any answers. As one comedian once said,
Today, a young man on acid realized that all
all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration, that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There's no such thing as death. Life is only a dream, and we're the imagination of ourselves. Here's Tom with the weather.
End quote. That's what I enjoy entertaining, at least. I forgot the dude's name who said that. Gil Hicks?
It's Bill Hicks, and since he faked his own death, he became Alex Jones. Haven't you heard?
Yeah.
That's right. How could I forget that? So, Dr. Carl Jung, I'm sure we're all familiar with.
He invented
He brought
childhood, right?
He invented a bunch of stuff that actually has been around for a long term, but just got put into ways that normal people could understand through the lens of psychology.
Hell
But
yeah.
a lot of his stuff is ancient, though. And this dude was a straight up occultist under the surface.
Yeah.
Like, he's talking all kinds of hidden, secret, sacred knowledge that you got to really dig deep to find. So he was balls deep in that shit, even though at the surface level, he was a doctor. Carl Jung brought forth the idea into the, mainstream, the idea of the collective unconscious. He brought it into the modern zeitgeist. It is a supermind composed of all living humans that walk the earth. This collective unconscious has a will and reality all its own, outside and separate from individual consciousness. Ancient Chinese philosophers imagined an enormous spirit that inhabited space and fed on the souls of earthlings. Every person who ever lived was nothing but moon food in the cosmic order of things.
Yummy.
Dark, but I'm going somewhere with this. Ivan T. Sanderson, a zoologist and independent freethinker, much like you, listeners, went even further, stating that if the collective unconscious existed like a magnetic blanket over the planet, and if it could manipulate our reality independently, then it would mean that the Earth is a living organism with a mind all its own. To ensure its own survival, it has to feed on humans, and it has to jolly us along.
Like we do with corn.
Urging humans to breed and giving them hopes and dreams and other sophisticated thoughts to keep the species going. The Earth needs us because each individual is a cell in its massive brain. Just like the human brain controls the cells and organs of our bodies, our relationship with the Earth itself is similar. This supermind can influence individuals. This includes the destinies of individuals as well as whole societies. In a sense, Earth itself is God.
And we're all just individual neurons firing.
But if you'd like to hear the rest of this Supersode, where we talk about the Superspectrum, Lee Harvey Oswald,
Indrid Cold, and the Mothman,
then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you the extended version of this episode, but our entire library of extended episodes stretching back so many years I can't even keep track.
Can we talk about the Gothman?
the Mothman?
Gothman.
The f***?
That's his edgy younger brother.
Oh.
Yes, but you'll have to go to Patreon and sign in there, which will then allow you to instantaneously be able to access all of these extended episodes on Spotify, which makes it much easier to browse. But not only that, I'll send you a 5x5 high quality Big Bunny Baphomet cover of our sticker art thing. It's a sticky thing of our cover art. And you'll get the secret keys to our Discord server, where you can talk to us about the weird bug people that you see in your nightmares. Thank you, everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers.
Him do the thing.
Pew pew.